brachii, distally, medial, epicondyle of humerus. What the fuck does that mean? I don't know. I'm an idiot. But I do know that it means, yeah, buddy. Lightweight, baby! What's up, guys? I'm Josh and I lift things, and I'm here to talk about your lower lats and how to build them. Too long didn't watch? You can't. You just got clickbaited, idiot. But in all seriousness, I need to address this topic. I get asked this all the time, primarily from people who don't have any lat size whatsoever, and they're concerned with their lower lats. This video is going to be very similar to my lower chest and bicep heads video. I'll give you all a quick refresher on Anatomy 101, and then I'll discuss the practicality of actually trying to train your lower lats. So let's start with the basics, just a little bit of anatomy. The lat muscle is a broad, flat muscle that occupies the majority of the lower posterior thorax, the middle of your back. The muscle's primary function is of the upper extremity, but it also is considered to be a respiratory accessory muscle. Along with the levator scapulae, traps, and rhomboids, the lats belong to the superficial layer of the extrinsic back muscles. Also, the rhomboids aren't really that superficial, they lie underneath the traps, but regardless, functionally, the lat muscle belongs to the muscle of the scapular motion. This muscle is able to pull the inferior angle of the scap in various directions, producing movements on the shoulder joint, internal rotation, adduction, and extension of the arm. So, as we can see here, this is where the lats originate in all of these places, and it inserts right up there. The muscle has attachments to the lower 6 thoracic vertebrae spinous processes anterior to the attachment of the trapezius on the spinous process. That's a whole lot of words, but basically what that means is right there in the middle of your back. It attaches through the thoracolumbar fascia, where it attaches to the lumbar and sacral spinous processes, the T6 to S5 levels, and the supraspinous ligament. And then other attachments of the muscle include the posterior iliac crest, the lower 3 to 4 ribs where it interdigitates with the external oblique muscle, and the inferior angle of the scapula. Now, this is very important. A lot of people try to say that you only have 3 originations of the lats, and that's how they try to separate the idea of a middle, a lower, and a higher portion of the lat. Once again, this idea is just absurd. We can arbitrarily break this down into as many groups as we want. Here's the upper lats, here's the middle lats, here's the upper middle, here's the upper middle, here's the upper middle, and so on and so forth. Besides that, what about the medial lats? What if I want to build this portion of lat versus the outside portion of the lat? What about the outside upper middle? Why aren't we focusing on that? Why is that more of a meme and sound ridiculous to people when they think that you can isolate other regions of it? The muscle fibers are situated in various orientations, with the uppermost fibers almost horizontally oriented and the lower fibers much more vertically oriented on the thorax. And you can see this. If it inserts up here by the upper arm, they will have to run laterally to the side. The ones that are lower will have to run a little bit higher up. Does that change anything for us? Probably not, but let's continue. As the muscle fibers extend towards the axilla, the fibers wind around the anterior aspect of the teres major muscle to insert as a flat tendon on the floor of the intertubercular bicipital groove of the humerus. The lat attachment extends farther superiorly than does the attachment of the teres major on the lateral lip of the sulcus. We can see that the thoracodorsal nerve, C6 to C8, from the posterior cord of the brachial plexus, which enters the muscle on its deep surface. The skin covering the lat muscle is supplied by roots T4 to T12, inclusive by both ventral and dorsal rami, as well as the dorsal rami of L1 to L3. Basically, what that means is the entire lat is getting controlled by the same nerves and is getting the same blood supply from the same arteries. This should lead you to question if you can actually contract different portions of it. Now, to my knowledge, there is no single study that actually has performed an EMG test on different regions of the lat, primarily because you can't actually do it. When a muscle fires, it fires together in tandem. There are not multiple heads of the lat. It is considered one broad muscle. That is it. So there's not even the meme of training like a clavicular chest versus a sternocostal chest. It's purely just one giant muscle. There are no heads. Sure, some fibers run in different directions, but that's purely because of where they originate from. And again, the originations that most people classify doesn't even work out with the biomechanics or the actual anatomy, because they originate in tons of different places, and the actual distinction of upper, middle, and lower is so arbitrary anyways that practically it does not matter. But some people have tried to take some studies and then apply it to other things and try to claim some bullshit. One of my favorite people that likes to do this is part of the high intensity crowd on TikTok, JPG Coaching.
I messed up, guys. Well, sort of. I'm sure that a lot of you have found my page and know me from this kneeling lat pull down. While I was using this as more of a mid to low lat exercise.
This is the study he is referencing. And he talks about using this as a mid to low lat exercise. It's kind of hard to see this, but we can read the lat has three main regions: thoracic, lumbar, and pelvic. Again, we just found out through some basic anatomy that is not the case and is a vast oversimplification that you could apply to any muscle group if you really wanted to. And they each have very different leverages for shoulder extension and adduction. They have different leverages for shoulder extension and adduction. Let's hear what JPG has to say about this.
The Ackland study showed that the upper lats actually have the best leverage with this motion, and the mid to low lats showed better leverage with an adduction-based movement, so something like a wide grip pull down would work very well for those. Now, it's not that this movement is no mid to low lat, it's just that the upper lats have better leverage, so if you want to ensure that you're getting mid to low lat out of this movement, you should be finishing with partials or loading in such a way that loads that top position a bit more. That's why something like the step back hammer row into a kneeling hammer row works really well for the mid to low lats, as you're loading more of that lengthened position. All divisions of the lats, however, have poor leverage when you're coming up fully overhead, so still staying around that 120-130 degrees of shoulder flexion when you're coming up is ideal. Keeping this in mind, I think that if you want to best target the lats, then you should have some kind of neutral grip row or pull down, and then some kind of adduction-based movement like a wide grip pull down. Hope this helps, and as always, make sure to like and follow for more efficient.
Yeah, maybe don't do that. So here is the actual study that he's talking about. Moment arms of the muscles crossing the anatomical shoulder by Ackland. The objective of the present study was to determine the instantaneous moment arms of 18 major muscle subregions crossing the glenohumeral joint during coronal plane abduction and sagittal plane flexion. Muscle moment arm data for subregions of the shoulder musculature during humeral elevation are currently not available. The tendon excursion method was used to measure instantaneous muscle moment arms in 8 upper extremity cadaver specimens. So, they took some dead people and then measured the forces put on a tendon and then try to derive information off of that. Significant differences in moment arms were reported across subregions of the deltoid, pec major, lats, subscapularis, infraspinatus, and supraspinatus, which, if you've watched any of my past EMG videos, you know that getting some accurate readings of the rotator cuff muscles is damn near impossible. The most effective abductors were the middle and anterior deltoid, where the most effective adductors were the teres major, middle and inferior latissimus dorsi, lumbar vertebrae and iliac crest fibers respectively, and middle and inferior pectoralis major, sternal and lower costal fibers respectively. So these guys are even talking more about the lower chest, which, as we've proven before, is kind of bullshit. In flexion, the superior pectoralis major, the clavicular fibers, anterior and posterior supraspinatus, and the anterior deltoid were the most effective flexors, whereas the teres major and posterior deltoid had the largest extensor moment arms. Division of multipennate shoulder muscles of broad origins into subregions highlighted distinct functional differences across those subregions. Most significantly, we found that the superior subregion of the pec major had the capacity to exert substantial torque and flexion, whereas the middle and inferior subregions tended to behave as a stabilizer and extensor, respectively. Knowledge of moment arm differences between muscle subregions may assist in identifying the functional effects of muscle subregion tears, assist surgeons in planning tendon reconstructive surgery, and aid in the development and validation of biomechanical computer models used in implant design. Tell me, does increased leverages necessarily imply increased motor unit recruitment of certain areas of muscle? No, it does not. Tell me, does assisting surgeons in planning tendon reconstructive surgery have anything to do with increased hypertrophy of your lower lats specifically? No, it does not. This is taking a study which has nothing to do with what the fuck you are talking about and wrapping it up in a way to try to masquerade that you can get some increased activation of the lower lat because of a tendon way up here had a little bit more activity when they, artificially fucked with an arm in a cadaver. This is not how people work. This is the same thing as when people who are super afraid of artificial sweeteners reference a study where they gave someone the equivalent of 1,800 cans of Diet Coke to try to say that aspartame is genotoxic. That just is not how you... There's nothing necessarily wrong with this study. The issue is people who have no idea what the fuck they're talking about, taking a modicum of truth and then expanding it to lie to their viewers because they don't understand anatomy, physiology, biomechanics, kinesiology, or anything else. Now, I am not trying to say that regional hypertrophy does not occur. It has been noted time and time again that regional hypertrophy can occur in some places, even places that shouldn't experience them in the first place, such as lower down on the bicep. This has nothing to do with a short head or long head bias. This has everything to do with the body being weird and just adding muscle mass in unequal amounts in certain places. It does not seem to be something that you can actually bias, and it is something directly impacted by genetics. Find me one study showing actual EMG activation of different lat regions through different movements, and then show me a study saying that EMG activation is indicative of long-term hypertrophy, or the EMG data can directly be seen as something that increases motor units recruited during a movement. Pro tip, you can't do it because it does not exist. I have been on Google Scholar for hours typing everything I can think of to try to get some type of result based around actual EMG differences in regions of the lat, which again is wildly oversimplified. You can't just say the iliac part of the lat. That's not how this works. And as per usual with these videos, a little fun fact for you: all humans are not the same. Variation of the latissimus dorsi. In this study alone, we repeat 3 cases of variants of lat, one of which has not been reported in the literature before. The auxiliary arch is represented by the muscular or fibromuscular slip detached from the anterior-inferior border of the musculus latissimus dorsi, passing over the axilla under the axillary fascia, crossing the medial side of the brachial plexus to continue as a septum intramuscular medial brachii, distally the medial epicondyle of humerus. What the fuck does that mean? I don't know. I'm an idiot. But I do know that it means that you can't just be telling people, oh, well, this version of the lat. Dude, everyone is slightly different. So when you talk about these segments of the lats, someone may not even have that segment. There is no EMG data, let alone any longitudinal ultrasound data of increased hypertrophy of different regions of the lats by doing different movements to supposedly bias the lower lat. From that JPG video, he talks about the lower lats having the greatest leverages during some type of abduction movement, such as a high pull down, while most of the bro science you hear out there has to do with keeping your elbows tucked in more in order to try to bias the lower lats. Guess what? If you have a good mind-muscle connection, you can feel your quote-unquote lower lats engage by doing any of these movements. You'll have awesome bodybuilders like Dorian Yates talk about how to build up your lower lats, but unfortunately, some of these people that are just genetic freaks with crazy amounts of work ethic and, you know, a lot of steroids and decades of training, they're not always the smartest people. And I'm not calling Dorian Yates dumb or anything. I just mean he's also a proponent of high-intensity training, which is fine. If you enjoy that, that's what you like. But that doesn't mean that it's necessarily the best or necessarily accurate, at least according to the literature. So please, if you can, show me any data you have that would actually suggest you can isolate parts of the lat. I don't think you'll be able to, but I would love to see it. And even if you can, that does not imply that you would have increased hypertrophy in any of those regions. As per usual with exercise selection, you just have to pick a movement that is comfortable for you. If you deadlift less than 4 plates and you have an awful back with no definition or size to your lats at all, please do not focus on the meme of hitting your lower lats or your upper lats. You just have to pull something. Pull anything in any way that you can pull it. And until you get to the point of actually looking like you have some muscle mass, don't worry about this little meme optimization bullshit that has zero evidence or zero actual research backing up the claims that these people are making. Please stop misinterpreting studies for your own goal or for your own content, because that just further confuses people. Oh, I hate my job. To recap, the lat is one muscle. It is all controlled by the same nerve. It is all controlled by the same arterial supply. It has multiple originations and only one insertion, and the blanket 3 categories people try to apply to it are 1, inaccurate in an anatomy sense, and 2, inaccurate in a practicality sense, because anything could arbitrarily be giving 3 regions of upper, middle, and lower. Why do you all of a sudden try to throw out the inner lats or the outer lats? Regional hypertrophy is a thing, but not in the way that you think it is. Leverages and EMG activation is not synonymous with hypertrophy or growth or motor unit recruitment. Variation exists between people, both in terms of literally missing chunks of muscle, but then also differences in originations and insertions that will change how your lats are. It's very possible if you don't have big lower lats, you never will. Children need to quit watching TikTok because they're stealing your fucking data, and there's a bunch of assholes on there, not JPG necessarily, that like to misinterpret data to try to lie to you and get more clicks. And guys, that is the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this style of content, like, comment, subscribe, share, all that stuff. If you really like this style of content, you can follow all of these socials down below. They will be linked in the description. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.